When we are solving linear inequalities, here are some steps that you can follow in the process of solving. The big things are the last two bullets. Basically, you can treat linear inequalities the same way that you treat equations. So however you would solve equations, that's the same way that we're going to solve inequalities. The only difference is if we have to multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, it's going to take that inequality symbol and reverse it. It's going to switch the inequality symbol. Otherwise, this is basically exactly the same as solving equations. So let's try this out. What do you think we should do first? 2x plus 3 is greater than 9. Subtract 3. So we have 2x is greater than 6. And then divide by 2. X is greater than 3. This doesn't say to graph the solution, but if the instructions did say to graph the solution, do you remember how to graph inequalities? I don't care how detailed your number line is. If all you have is the number 3 on there, that's fine. It is helpful if you also put 0 somewhere on there, just so that I know that you have some sense of where numbers go on a number line. So if I've got 0 and 3 on my number line, if x is greater than 3, I need to put a circle at 3. Do I use an open circle or a filled in circle? Open circle. Greater than uses an open circle because it does not include the number. It's greater than, not greater than or equal to. If it had been greater than or equal to, then we would use a filled in circle. All right, greater than. X is the shaded stuff. The shaded stuff needs to be bigger than 3, so we would shade to the right of 3. Helpful hint. If your variable is listed first and your number is listed second with the inequality symbol in between it, notice that this symbol actually creates an arrowhead showing you which direction you need to shade. So the symbol does help you to see which direction you need to shade. The other trick is hold your hands up. If your right hand makes the symbol, you shade to the right. If your left hand makes the symbol, you shade to the left. All right, let's try number 2. What should we do first in number 2? Subtract 5. That leaves us with negative 2x is less than or equal to 20. We would then need to divide by negative 2. This is one of those cases. We had to divide both sides by the same number, by the same negative number. So it switches the symbol to x is greater than or equal to negative 10. Okay. This one, there's negative 10, there's 0. What type of circle would I use at negative 10? Closed circle. And again, that symbol helps us to see which direction we need to shade. You can make that symbol with your right hand, so you shade to the right. Everything larger than 10. A compound inequality is when you have two inequalities and they are connected by the word and or the word or. However, you will not see the word and, you will only typically see the word or, because and inequalities, we actually don't write them with the word and. If x is supposed to be greater than or equal to 0, or 0 is less than or equal to x, and x is less than 4, we write that as 0 is less than or equal to x is less than 4. Basically, an and inequality tells you that x can be anything in between the smaller number and the bigger number. So you write it as one inequality with multiple inequality symbols. Graphing a compound inequality. Negative 2 is less than y is less than or equal to 0. I'm going to space this out a little bit. If that's -2, we'll make this be -1. We'll make this be 0. Between -2 and y, that is less than, that's going to be an open circle. So at -2, we have an open circle. Between y and 0, it's less than or equal to, that one is going to be a closed circle. And then notice that y is in between them. Y needs to be bigger than -2 and at the same time smaller than 0. So the stuff in between the smaller number and the bigger number, that's where you shade. Okay, there's a couple of really helpful things in this section of the notes. Here's the first really important thing. You always want to write your answer in the proper format. The smaller number needs to come first, the x in the middle, the larger number on the right. And because the signs always eat the larger number, notice it's always less than signs moving from left to right. And if you have your inequality written correctly, like in step 2, then step 3 is going to be super easy. Smaller number on the left, larger number on the right, shade in between. Solving compound and inequalities is actually kind of interesting. Do you remember in Algebra 1 when your teachers had you draw a line through the equal sign or through the inequality sign? If you draw a line straight down between both of these, you create 3 columns. Your goal is to get just plain x in the middle. Whatever you do in the middle to isolate the x, you must also do to the left column and to the right column. So what should we do first? Subtract 1. That gives us -3 is less than 3x is less than 3. Then we would divide by 3. Don't know where 2 came from. So we have -1 is less than x is less than 1. I don't care how you space this out on the number line, but see if you can graph that one on the number line on your own. What do we need to do first in number 5? Subtract 3. That gives us -10 is less than -x is less than 2. How do we get rid of the negative in front of the x? We divide everything by -1. And when we divide an inequality by a negative, what needs to happen to those signs? They need to flip. So +10 is greater than x is greater than -2. Does anybody see a problem with how that answer looks? Right. And we really want the smaller number to be on the left. So this is going to feel kind of like you're switching the symbols back. You actually are not switching the symbols. What is happening between the -2 and the x? The sign is eating the x. So make sure between your -2 and your x that the sign is eating the x. Between the x and the 10, the sign is eating the 10. Make sure that your sign is still eating the 10. You're really just taking this statement and flipping it around so that the smaller number is on the left. It seems like you're switching the symbol back, but you're really just flipping the whole statement. Once you have it written like this, I think you might have to count by 2s to make this work. 2, So that'd be 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Open circle at -2, open circle at 10, and shade in the middle. When you see the word or with inequalities, it does not mean that you get to pick one. You still have to do both inequalities. So x minus 4 is less than 3, or 2x is greater than 18. Start with the left one. We would have to add 4 on both sides to get x is less than 7. For the other inequality, we would have to divide by 2. X is greater than 9. Put the word or in between them, and that is your answer. X is less than 7 or x is greater than 9. This means that 5 would be an acceptable answer because 5 is smaller than 7. 10 would also be an acceptable answer because 10 is bigger than 9. So x can either be smaller than 7 or larger than 9. In the real world, so like movie theater tickets, sometimes they let kids that are like really young, they let them in cheaper. So kids under 5 get the cheaper price, and adults over 65 get the cheaper price because they give old people a break for some reason. So that's an example of two ends of the spectrum. Like smaller than this is good, bigger than this is good, but nothing in between. To graph this, put 7 on that number line, put 9 on that number line. Open circle on both of them because they're both don't have that equal. X is less than 7. That means that we would shade to the left of 7. X is greater than 9. That means we shade to the right of 9. Basically, we're saying you can't have 7 or 8 or 9. You can't have any of those numbers, but you can have the rest of them. On your own, take a moment, solve both inequalities in number 7 and put them both on the graph together. As we graph this one, we'd have an open circle at -4, and x needs to be larger than -4, so I would shade to the right. X is less than -4. That means an open circle at -4 and shade to the left. So basically, what's the only number that we can't use for this particular compound inequality? -4. X can't equal -4. Your salary is $1,300 per week, and you receive a 4.5% commission on your sales each week. What are the possible amounts in dollars that you can sell each week to earn at least $1,500 per week? Okay, first of all, if somebody is making $1,300 a week, I want that job because, wow, that's bank. But every week, you earn $1,300. In addition to that, you earn a 4.5% commission. If you take 4.5% divided by 100, that changes it into a decimal. It's 0.045. You have to take that percentage times the dollar amount that you sell. So if you sell $100 worth of product, you would get $4.50 added to your salary. Leave a space. You want to earn at least $1,500. Some teachers try to tell you the term "at least" means this symbol. That's hard to remember, and I don't feel like that's a good way to do this. Instead, leave a space and then think about, this is how much we're going to earn. Do we want the amount we're going to earn to be smaller than $1,500? Would that be correct? Do we want to earn less than $1,500? No, we want to earn greater than $1,500 or exactly $1,500.